Broadcasting from the Hip Hop Weekly Studios, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Civic Cipher, where our mission is to foster allyship, empathy, and understanding. I am your host, Ramses Ja.
He is Ramses Ja. I am Q Ward. You are tuned in to Civic Cipher.
Indeed you are, and today we have a very special episode because we are joined by good friends of the show. These two are community leaders, activists, and they're AKAs, and recently we all had a fun time and a core memory, as Talei puts it, at the Kamala Harris campaign rally in Glendale, Arizona, where she addressed a number of things, including her plans for her administration with respect to Israel and Palestine. So we're going to have a conversation with both of them. I'd like to welcome to the show Brandy Ervin.
Hello.
And Talei Hornback.
Hello, hello.
And so we want you to stick around for that conversation because, again, we are going to get the Black women's perspective on Kamala Harris. And this is something that we have talked around on this show. But today we have two Black women who also come from a lot of the same, let's call it primordial sort of stuff that indeed Kamala Harris comes from as well. And to know what this moment is like for you and to kind of sit at that intersection is something that I think a lot of people need to know about, especially with so much misinformation and disinformation out there. Mm-hmm. The second half of the show, we are going to be talking about something that we've talked about before. This time Q is going to take the first mic position, the lead role, and give us some advice on how to talk to our political opposition online and just kind of share what he's learned and what he knows and what he's learning actively.
I did not know I was giving advice today.
That he is, because he learned something recently that I think you will be in a treat for. So stick around for that and so much more. But before we get there, it is time for some Ebony Excellence.
Shall we?
I think you shall.
Today's Ebony Excellence is sponsored by Actively Black. There is greatness in our DNA. Visit activelyblack.com. Today's story from NBC News, Paris. American men have competed in track and field at the Olympics for 128 years. Never before, however, has there been someone as young as Quincy Wilson. The 16-year-old ran the opening leg of round one of the U.S. 4x400 meter relay Friday inside Stade de France. With that run, Wilson became the youngest male U.S. Olympic track champion, eclipsing middle distance runner Jim Ryan, who was 17 at the 1964 Olympics. Wilson later became the youngest Olympic male to receive a gold medal after the U.S. 4x4 made up of Chris Bailey, Vernon Norwood, Bryce Deadman, and Rai Benjamin won gold over Botswana on Saturday. While Wilson did not compete in the finals, his effort in round one earned him the hardware. In Friday's race, Wilson faded in the last 150 meters to hand over in 7th place, 3 seconds behind the leaders, but Team USA did not panic, with strong legs from the other American runners, seeing the U.S. recovering to finish third and into Saturday's final. Without going into detail, Wilson said afterward he was not completely healthy. "I knew I had a great 3 legs behind me," Wilson said, and I quote, "I knew it wasn't just myself because by myself, we would be in last place." Wilson handed off to teammate Norwood, whose 43.54 leg got the U.S. back in contention. Norwood described himself as very proud watching Wilson. Quote, "I was kind of in the moment because I was watching a 16-year-old running in the Olympics." Olympic history, Norwood said. The Olympics is a very interesting time for us to be very patriotic while also being very Black. It is an interesting position to be in this country.
Yeah. But that absolutely is some Ebony Excellence for you, and we are happy to celebrate it. All right. Let's talk to Black women about Kamala Harris. So, as I mentioned, we were fortunate enough to go to Kamala Harris's campaign rally in Glendale, Arizona on August 9th.
It was cracking.
It was yanking.
Next level energy.
Listen,
Yes.
talk to him.
I did the bankhead bounce for the first time in 20 years.
Oh my gosh, the music though.
Yeah, Javen. Shout out to DJ Javen. So for many of our listeners around the country, you know that the show is based in Phoenix, Arizona. Obviously, we discuss national issues, but we have a sort of a unique lens through which we view politics in this country and the state of marginalized people in this country, because being in Arizona, it's kind of like middle America, but it's also a really big city. I think we're the 5th largest city in the country. It's also a swing state, so there's a lot of blue, a lot of red. And this is kind of like, you know how Florida is an interesting place? This is kind of like the Florida, but more on the West Coast.
Agree.
Well, but, you know, just, but it has a very Florida-esque, like you might hear some wild stories coming out of Arizona. Anyway, so our being here, we certainly take advantage of the unique position that we're in. We do get visits from, obviously, political leaders. We do get a lot of things that you would get in New York and LA, Miami, places like that. But also I think the headquarters of the KKK is in Glendale, Arizona, not far from this camp where this campaign rally took place, if I'm not mistaken. So again, an interesting place to be and to, you know, grow up in. And this campaign rally, I was told, was the biggest political event in Arizona political history, which certainly speaks to the moment. But I don't know that it will speak to the moment more than the black women who were positioned behind Kamala Harris at this event. You know, there was a few moments that went viral, a few moments that the media took out of that event. And those moments, you know, when you look them up online, you'll see Kamala Harris speaking. And of course, the crowd behind her is seated behind her with the signs that say Kamala and the signs that say Coach that are kind of supporting Tim Walz and so forth. But in those photos, right behind Kamala Harris, are the 2 young women that are in the studio with us today. And they were back there wearing their pink and their green. And they were supporting their, I want to say this right, Sorority. That's how you say it, right? Because
sorority sister.
Sorority. I know the word is soror, but I always hear soror. So either way, it sounds.
Sora Camilla says soror.
That's where I got it from. Okay. And for those that don't know, Sora Camilla is Dr. Camilla Westenberg, who is a frequent contributor to this show, who is also an Alpha Kappa Alpha member. For those that don't know, Kamala Harris is an Alpha Kappa Alpha member as well. Q made it a point to mention that she is an Alpha chapter, AKA member, and
the founding chapter.
Indeed. And this moment, and again, let me back up a bit. For those that don't know, the AKA is a sorority. Actually, why would I tell this story? You are here. Talei, why don't you tell us about the AKA?
Absolutely. Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated was the first black sorority established for black collegiate women. And so established in 1908 gives you some insight into the history and challenges and barriers that our founders overcame to make such a historical milestone in black history happen.
Fantastic.
Yep. And founded at Howard University.
At Howard University
in DC.
Oh, so pretty Wednesday.
Yes.
That's an HBCU, by the way.
Okay.
So years ago, Kamala started being black, I guess, again, so that she could pledge a Divine Nine sorority Alpha chapter at an HBCU.
Because she knew that one day.
She knew in 40 years she was going to play that trump card and come back out black.
Yes. And while we are proud members of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, our opinions expressed tonight do not reflect that of the sorority.
Sure, absolutely. Now, I think that you being at that event behind her wearing pink and green, knowing that she skipped out on meeting with, I believe it was Benjamin Netanyahu, when she had an opportunity to fulfill her prior commitment to go to, I believe it was Houston. Am I wrong? Is it Houston?
No, that's correct.
Okay, so tell us about what was going on in Houston.
Actually, I think it was Dallas.
Dallas, okay.
It was our boule. So all members of the sorority come together every 4 years to accomplish, what we set out to accomplish as service to all mankind. So, a formal business setting, conference-like environment, and centered on keynote speaker, as you can imagine. So, it was a big deal, of course, to have Soror Kamala present.
Okay, now, if you still don't know how big of a deal this was, and you are just now coming to the conversation about AKAs, I will be the one to tell you about my experience, and you all feel free to jump in, Q, you included. In terms of service, you mentioned service to all mankind. I've never seen anything like it. The woman who's closest to my mother, she's certainly my college mother. She comes and does the show with me. I mentioned her name, Dr. Camilla Westenberg. Her whole life is lived in service. And her support system is the AKAs. And she's not the only one. They're everywhere. I've been with, and it's just it's an amazing thing, because when people say bet on black women save this country time and again, black girl magic, all these things, the thing that comes to mind most frequently to me is AKAs. There's no other. My sister used to compel me to go to AKA events, and she's like, you need to go and don't come back without a wife, right? That's what she was on.
What happened, Ramses?
I'm still working on it, I guess. I don't know. But
I thought she hit you with the beatbox.
yeah, man. But here's the thing. I think that all of these sentiments are well-founded. You two were at this event with Kamala Harris. Talk to us a bit about what it meant for you as a black woman. Brandy, we're gonna go with you this time. As a black woman, to sit there over the shoulder of the vice president, soon to be president of the United States of America, who is your soror, and witness that moment.
Like nothing short of amazing. And I'm sick to think that I almost wasn't going to attend. But it was so amazing. Like, not even just me being a black woman and being a part of the same sorority as our vice president, Kamala, but just being there with an arena full of people who were excited and had all this energy and were excited about this energy towards change and could see like a brighter, and I know this sounds so cliche and just corny, but to actually see a brighter future with someone than what we've been experiencing or what we can imagine in the future if there's an alternative. So just being there in that moment, and then being able to be like right behind her, like, girl, you have backup because we're here.
That's what it looked like.
And and it's almost like, yeah, like you have backup, like we're here. And it's not even just about being, to the level of AKA and all that stuff. It's like, or her party, or her running for president, or her being the vice president. It's like, this is our sorority sister, and we're going to support her endeavors.
Sure.
Which that day happened to be that, but also, me personally feeling like, wow, like there's someone who looks like me that will have, in, short of a few months, would have the power to like really make a positive impact in this country. And it's exciting to even think about, to even imagine, like, just the hope and the joy of just seeing it. Like, it's, I don't know, I'm gonna carry that like with me forever.
Yeah.
The sad thing is that you said it sounded cliche. Maybe it used to.
Yeah, that is true.
But it doesn't anymore. Politics in our country have become very divisive. A lot of mudslinging, a lot of name calling, and the other side, more specifically, they don't even campaign on policy anymore.
Right.
They jump off the porch with hate and division, you know, racism, bigotry, and things that would divide us. They look to divide us.
Yeah.
So it's not cliche at all. And I think that what was so, for Ramses and I especially, what was so energizing and so refreshing is that they didn't come on stage hating on anybody else. If you look at that crowd, you see campaign signs and American flags. You don't see swastikas. You don't see Confederate flags. You don't see anti anything.
Everybody was happy.
Yeah. So that's, you know, you said cliche, but it's actually nowadays not cliche anymore for somebody to just come out and give you hope and joy and happiness.
You know, they say laughter is contagious. And like, you also know how the other side kind of tries to condemn Kamala for laughing and being joyful, but it's like, the reality is that's starting to spread. And that energy, there's an energy shift because she is happy, she is smiling, she is a positive energy. And, you know, and I feel that, you know, people who aren't that way, you know, feel attacked, but you shouldn't feel attacked by someone being happy and joyful and spreading it. You know, to me, it reminds me of stuff like, I like, you know, we laugh, we have a good time, you know how to be serious when you need to be serious, but like, if you're not being serious, it's okay to laugh at a joke, to crack a smile, to be, you know, chummy with people.
Yeah, I would just add, you know, it is a historic moment, it's a historic time, and so I think that was just further cemented our experience, not only being in the building, but where we lucked out or blessed to be positioned that was unplanned. So, you know, just our not only presence in the arena, but on whether that was television or whatever, it was already a historical moment. That's why we went, right? But to now have that tangible kind of evidence, you know, the trail that we're there, it was a blessing.
So let's keep going with you, Talei, because you know, we've talked about one of the things that we've witnessed is that this campaign should be exciting, and it is. Okay, it is exciting. Joe Biden stepping down and making way for the next generation, if you will, of leadership in this country, and embracing how that leadership looks. That's no small thing. So there are those of us who recognize the gravity of the moment, and we appreciate it. But there are people who are kind of like trying to suck the oxygen out of the moment. They're trying to kind of sour the moment somehow. And a lot of the attacks on Kamala Harris aren't necessarily based on really anything tangible. There are things like the way she laughs or silly nonsense like that. One of the things, of course, and I want you to speak to this, is whether or not she's black. Now, we know that her parents are immigrants to this country, but she's mixed race, right? Her father is Jamaican, and so that was what anchors her to blackness. And we talked about her history, pledging, you know, AKA at 19 years old, which you don't do unless you're a black woman, you know what I mean? But as someone, you know, Talei, as someone who is black and Fijian, kind of speak to that a little bit, like how those attacks hit you and how maybe that feels bizarre, or if it's something that you're comfortable with or you've known about or whatever. So talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. They definitely hit home for me. I can relate to that. I think also just coming up in Arizona, right? And I think we're 5 to 6% black now. Growing up here,
that
it was
much.
3 to 4%.
Yeah, we've grown. Okay.
We have grown, right?
Okay,
we have grown, but so I can relate on many aspects of the questioning, right, of blackness. But I do think that both can be true. She is both, you know, East Asian, and also black. I think what's most important is the perspective she brings to the table, being
Okay.
a minority, right? Because that minority perspective is something that we all share, regardless of what group you identify with, right? Race is a social construct anyways, that's a whole nother
Indeed.
discussion, but culturally, and those connections between all of us is that minority perspective. But I think to counter that in terms of, is she black, which is just the most ridiculous argument anyways, but we do have to address it, right? It's out there. I think one thing that we all know to be true, that does unify black people in particular, is the black experience. And I think a lot of that is you lead a black experience with who you are on the outside, right? Your features, your skin color. And so we know that when we step into a room, whether you're half Fijian, half Indian, half whatever, when you do look black, you experience the world different than those who don't. And so, I think just having someone who also has that black experience is enough, let alone she is black.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The other side has this very strange standard that they hold themselves to, and a completely different reality that they use to judge and view us, that an entirely different lens. Their narrative on our vice president changes daily. Some days she put on black conveniently so that she could run for president, which I don't know how they would see that as some advantage.
Yeah.
Other days they highlight her blackness and call out ways that she is somehow less qualified because of it. So they
she's a DEI hire.
Yeah, the DEI hire. So they speak out of both sides of their neck with regard to her.
Right.
Ramses and I have our perspective, our sense of pride, and our sense of, it's interesting talking about DEI, right? Us feeling like we belonged and feeling personally proud of where your soror is right now. But we could not imagine, aside from, and I'm actually glad that we have not specifically on this portion of the show gotten into specific policy. One, because she's been running for president for 3 weeks, whereas most have far longer to construct, their ideologies and what they think their campaign strategy and what their legislation and policy platform is going to be. She had to, on the fly, go from being the active vice president to now the presumptive candidate to run for that position. But we're spending a lot of time talking about how it felt, and I think that's important because I told Ramses, and I even spoke to you guys, there was a moment during the rally where I just start taking pictures of strangers because I just watched them experiencing joy out loud. Children. I saw a family that was 3 generations together there. And Brandy, you and I spoke about, the women in our family who, when they became of age to vote, couldn't. And just the idea that now they get to elect someone that looks like them. And you all get to elect someone specifically that looks like you. The personal sense of pride that comes with that.
Absolutely.
There's a whole discussion that we had that I want to invite you to check out at the Black Information Network. It's on the Black Information Network daily podcast where we do get into some more issues. But for now, I appreciate you sharing that perspective because obviously this is something that people need to know about how special this is.